11 ways to boost your confidence as a woman. Let's jump into it. So I'm Aisha. I'm a holistic life coach and launch strategist, and I teach women how to heal, get unstuck, and create a life and business that they love. So let's talk about confidence, because without confidence, it's hard to succeed. Without confidence, it's hard to go after your goals and your dreams. Without confidence, you never really feel happy, whole, and you don't really walk in your purpose because you don't really even believe in yourself. So here are 11 ways that you can begin to boost your confidence as a woman. Number 1, develop your relationship with God. Once you decide to become more confident, you're going to begin to realize that confidence ultimately doesn't have a lot to do with your physical appearance, because one day we all going to get old and wrinkly if we make it that, if we live that long. 2, you're going to realize that confidence doesn't have anything to do with the money in your bank, because money comes and goes. And you're going to realize that confidence has nothing to do with whether or not you're in a relationship, whether or not you make 6 figures, 7 figures. It has nothing to do with any of that. Confidence has everything to do with the woman that you believe you are. And that has everything to do with the relationship that you have with God. So number 1 is always developing a relationship with God. And why is this so important? Because when God is at the forefront of our lives, when He is at the center of our lives, when we are seeking His will, His ways, when we are showing up every single day in service to God, asking God how we can rise up and become who He's created us to be, how we can live our lives in a way that pleases Him and honor Him, that's going to get our mind turning in the right direction. And the more we're able to align our thoughts with a specific concept around purpose and why we're here, then we're going to begin to develop an inner sense of self. And that inner sense of self is where that confidence comes from. So developing a relationship with God is of the utmost importance. So how do you develop a relationship with God? Well, one of the best things to start doing is to make time for God. Set aside time every single day, even if it's just a few minutes, to devote to God, whether that's reading a spiritual scripture, whether that's the Quran, the Bible, the Torah, or you're just reading, whether that's taking time to journal a letter to God, or whether you just take the time to sit there and talk to God. Even if you're driving in a car, just start having a conversation with God as if He's right there, and start talking to Him about everything. The things you call your girlfriend up about. Like the things that you complain about, the things that you joke about, laugh about. Start having a conversation with God in the way that He's right there with you. That right there is going to open up so many new ideas. You're going to get so many inspirations and so many other things that are going to help you draw closer to God. And ask God for that. Ask God to help you to develop your relationship with Him. And I guarantee you, He will not let you down, because God always answers the prayers of those who call on Him. Secondly, develop a relationship with yourself. A lot of times our confidence suffers because our identity, the women we think we are, the people we think we are, is not in the best light. So we may not see ourselves in the best way. So you want to begin to develop a relationship with yourself. How can you become your own best friend? First things first is, how does a best friend talk to a best friend? A lot of times our confidence is down the drain, down the toilet, because the inner self-talk, the way we talk to ourselves in our own mind, is not the way a friend would talk to a friend. We may put ourselves down, belittle ourselves, yell at ourselves, look at ourselves in the mirror with disgust. We may say, oh God, you made another mistake. Oh my God, you get on my nerve. The way that we talk to ourselves has everything to do with how much respect we have for ourselves and the relationship we have with ourselves. And as we begin to develop a relationship with ourselves, we begin to start to notice and become aware of how we talk to us, of how we see us, of when we look at ourselves in the mirror, like, what is that conversation like when you see yourself? Or what is the conversation you're having with yourself when you're just sitting there watching television, or when you're in the car driving, or when something doesn't go your way? Like, what are those constant thoughts or inner self-talk that's coming up and become aware of that, and then begin to change it. Because in order to really begin to develop a relationship with ourselves, in any relationship with anybody, it starts with communication. You have to begin to communicate, in a way that's healthy. And that starts within ourselves. Also, when it comes to developing a relationship with yourself, another thing you want to do is you want to begin to look at the ways that you're not kind to you outside of your self-talk. So like when it comes to the food you put in your body, do you, stuff yourself with food when you feel depressed or sad? Do you abuse yourself with alcohol or drugs? Do you, engage in habits or acts that are harmful to yourself as a way to try to cope and deal with life, as a way to survive? We want to begin to assess these things. We want to begin to look at these things and begin to identify the bad ways and the unkind ways that we show up for us. And it may not be as extreme as that. It may be that you procrastinate, that you have these goals, these dreams, these desires, and all these things that you say you want to do, but you don't do them. You are stuck in perfectionism mode, or you're overthinking, you're overanalyzing, or so many other excuses come up, whereas you just don't find the time to honor the things that you're supposed to be doing. And so as you begin to develop a relationship with yourself, and as we begin to develop relationships with ourselves, we have to begin to look at the ways that we're not doing the things that a best friend would do, to another best friend. We got to begin to own that and make those changes. The next thing, and I have my phone here. The other thing is you want to begin to assess your strengths and your weaknesses. Like, be real with yourself. What am I good at? What am I strong in? What are the things that I'm really proud of myself for? Where are the areas within me that I feel like I'm strong in these areas? And begin to leverage those. Begin to applaud yourself for these things. But you also, on the flip side, want to look at your weaknesses. What are your flaws? Do you not keep your word to yourself? Do you say you're going to go to the gym and you don't go? Do you say that you're going to do something and you don't do what you say you're going to do? Do you, find excuses and procrastinate? Do you struggle with, inconsistency or seeking external validation from other people? Begin to look at your weaknesses. And then, as you uncover the things you're weak in, start making the necessary changes to get stronger in these areas. Because a lot of times the weaknesses we have are rooted in an identity that we've developed over time that stuck with us from childhood. And we want to begin to put on a new identity and begin to see things differently and begin to take ownership so we can level up and elevate our life. Next, you want to value yourself. When I think about what it means to value yourself, to value oneself, you value yourself in a way where you don't allow negative criticism from other people to disturb you. You don't allow your past to disturb you. You know your worth, you know your value. And because you value yourself, you value your time. You value your energy. You value your mind. You value your body. And because you value your mind, you don't just let any thought in. Because you value your body, you don't just eat any kind of way and abuse your body. And because you value your body, you don't just sleep around with people. You don't, get out here and have one night stands with people and do things that can backfire on you and cause a life of regret. There's certain things that you don't do when you really value yourself. Now, everybody makes mistakes, but when it becomes like a lifestyle or a habit, then that's when there's some more inner work that, has to be done. And when you value yourself, you set boundaries. You speak your truth. You communicate. You don't let people walk all over you. You speak up for yourself and you speak up for who you are, and you let your voice be heard. You don't just shrink and go sit off in a corner somewhere, because of fear of visibility or fear of rejection. No, when you value yourself, you don't even care about being rejected. You don't even care about whether or not people like something or not like it. You just own up to who you are and you express that out into the world. Next, you want to begin to leave toxic thoughts alone. When you are on this path of developing your confidence, I want you to think about all the negative, toxic, mean things that you say to yourself inside your head. What are the things that really bother you in your mind? You know, because these thoughts, they're unsettling. So they lower your frequency. You can feel your vibration lowering every time you think these thoughts. So get a sheet of paper out and write down the toxic thoughts that you think and begin to reverse them. And every time these thoughts come up, change them with their opposite. Make it into a positive thought. Turn it into something that increases your vibrational frequency. Turn it into a thought that honors you and that honors God. And as you begin to do that, that's going to help your confidence. The next thing you want to begin to do is release toxic emotions. Now, we all have toxic emotions. Every time we get angry, upset, frustrated, that creates energetic imbalances within our body. But not only do we have toxic emotions from that, we have toxic emotions from trauma. We have toxic emotions from, prenatal trauma. Even when we were in our mother's wombs, anything she felt or that hurt her, that energy got transmitted to us. We have, toxic emotions that travel throughout our DNA, through our family bloodline. And so we want to begin to learn ways to release those emotions. And there are a lot of different ways to really work through releasing emotions. And I'm going to give you guys a few. One of the ways is to begin to change your diet. People don't really understand how much just making simple, small changes in what you consume helps to release stagnant energy within the body. So learning how to juice, learning how to take specific herbs, learning how to, consume healthy anti-inflammatory foods. Now, these foods are inflammatory for a reason. Not only do they inflame the body, they inflame your thinking. So these foods are going to lead to you being more frustrated and angry and upset. So changing the diet is one way to start to begin to release stagnant energy. But doing breath work, there's the 5x5x5 method. There's box breathing. There's childhood visualizations. There is DNA reprogramming. There's the use of magnets that you can use to pull emotions out of your body. There is scripting at the level of the cells, where you can go through and do a complete rescripting process on your own cells to begin to release this emotion. But the thing that most people don't talk about, and these are just a few, and also energy medicine, I want to mention that too. So just learning how to read the energy within your body and do certain motions and movements to release it out. But one thing people don't realize is that even when you release these emotions, every time you have a negative thought, more negative emotions are created. Or every time you think of a memory from the past and you either get numb about it, or you may start to have emotional reaction to it, that energy is still in the body. So learning how to release toxic emotions and living through that process and making that a part of your lifestyle is essential, because it's something that you want to do every single day. Next on the list is letting go of toxic habits. Now, we all know habits determine our destiny. Habits determine whether or not we win or lose, succeed or fail, accomplish our goals and dreams, or go to the grave with regret. So one of the things we want to begin to do is take a look at our toxic habits. What are your toxic habits? What are the things that you know that are working against your goals and your dreams? What are the foods you're eating? If every time you get upset, how do you respond? Or every time you feel rejected or disrespected, how do you respond? What are your other toxic habits? When you get off of work, or when you're finished, doing a specific activity, and you have set a goal for yourself to where you're going to work on your goals and your dreams, for 20, 30 minutes, but instead you decide to go do something completely different. If this is a habit where you're constantly putting things off to the side, things that are going to move your life forward, things that are going to get you closer to your goals and dreams, and you avoid them, then that's a toxic habit. And oftentimes We avoid things like that when it comes to pursuing our goals and dreams out of fear. Fear that we're not good enough, fear that we're not worthy, fear that we're not deserving, fear that we'll be rejected, fear of visibility, fear of what people will think, fear of judgment, all that. And all those fears, where does fear come from? Fear don't come from God. So we know that that fear is coming from a negative, force, an enemy, and so we have to begin to become aware and mindful of these things. So we want to let go of toxic habits. Whatever your toxic habits are, what your toxic habits are, write them down and make a decision to replace those toxic habits with the opposite. Do the opposite, habit so that you can make that a lifestyle. And next, and I have 3 more. This is the third one. Leave toxic people alone. If you know somebody is toxic, why in the world are you still dealing with them? Let these toxic people go. Like, you have to look at your life and make a decision on people who are not really good for you. You got to leave those people alone, let them go. But also, if you're the toxic person that's toxic to everybody else, then you got to do the work on that and begin to look at some of your toxic habits and toxic traits, because we all have things to work on and work through. None of us are perfect. We all sin. We all make mistakes. We all fall short. We all have challenges. We all are fighting inner battles that no one else knows about. All of us have things that we struggle with. And so one of the ways that we can begin to overcome these struggles is through a level of self-awareness, and it's through a level of taking accountability and making a decision to create new habits for ourselves that'll get us closer to our destiny. The last 2 is pursue your dream relentlessly. I mean, there's so many people on earth waiting for you, waiting for your gift, waiting for your talents, waiting for you to step into the light and shine your light. There's so many people waiting for the ideas that you've been having since you were a kid, or the things that you've always imagined that you want to do, but you just haven't done these things. You want to pursue your dream relentlessly, because I know for a fact you will never be happy until you pursue your purpose and your dreams relentlessly. So make that your number 1 priority for God. Be in service to Him, because before you know it, you're going to look up and another year has passed. Another 5 years have passed. Another 10 years have passed. And you don't want to get to the end of your life and be in regret. So pursue your dreams relentlessly. And the last one is create the grandest vision for your life. This is something that I feel like I've struggled with. Like, when you think about the greatest, biggest, grandest vision for you and for your life, how big can you really dream? Like, I've dreamt big, but I don't think I've dreamt big enough. And I think one of the things that we have to begin to do is use our imagination more. Like, if you could dream up the most exciting life for yourself, the one that you've been in service to God, you've tapped into your purpose, you're living out your calling, you're taking great care of yourself, you're honoring your mind, your body, your spirit, your family, you're doing things that are in alignment with God, what does life look like for you then? What is the grandest vision of you and your life? And work on that. That's something I'm even still working on, like coming up with the grandest vision. I have ideas about things that I would love to happen, but I still don't think it's big enough. So anyway, just to recap, we talked about 11 ways to boost confidence. So we talked about developing your relationship with God. We know hands down, when you have a healthy relationship with God, your confidence is higher than people who don't have a relationship with God at all. Because you're not only held to a higher standard, but you're also aware that God is real, God exists, God loves you, and that your relationship with Him is more important than any other relationship on planet Earth. So you live by a different code of honor. Next, we talked about developing a relationship with yourself, becoming your own best friend, treating yourself and talking to yourself in a way that your best friend would treat and talk to you, but you doing that for you. And then we talked about assessing your flaws, your strengths, your weaknesses, and leveraging those strengths, utilizing those strengths, playing to your strengths. And then whatever the weaknesses are or your flaws, beginning to put a plan of action in place to overcome those. We also talked about valuing you, valuing yourself, placing a value on you so much so that you don't let people walk all over you. You set boundaries, you communicate how you feel, you honor how you feel, and you make sure that you stand up for you. And we also talked about taking care of yourself, taking the best care of yourself, like the way that you would take care of someone that you love more than anyone else on the planet. Like taking care of yourself like that. You know, even the way you put your shea butter on, or brush your teeth, or do your hair, you know, just think the thoughts you think, the way you would encourage that person, you know, like begin to take that on and embody that. And then we also talked about letting go of toxic thoughts, because we know that our thinking heavily influences our reality. The thoughts we think are not just in our head. They impact our body. They impact our organs. They impact, you know, they go outside of us into the ether, into the quantum field, and they begin to take shape and clothe themselves into reality. And then we begin to live those thoughts. So learning how to leave these toxic thoughts alone and replace them with healthy, beautiful thoughts that make you feel good, that make you feel happy, that make you feel alive, you know. And that's a practice, you know, because in school, we're not taught how to think. And that's part of the problem with the education system, but I'm not even gonna get on that because that's not what this video is about. But we're not taught how to think. We have to learn how to think. You know, we have to learn how to think with intention and purpose. And one of the best books ever written on this is As a Man Thinketh, you know, because in that book, he talks a lot about how our thinking really is what's creating everything, creating our results in our life, you know, and that's scriptural too, because as you sow, you'll reap. You reap what you sow. And we sow not just in action, we sow in thought and in word. So we have to all, you know, work on that, you know, myself included. Next, we talked about releasing these toxic emotions. There's a really good book that I read called, I read a lot of books, but one of the most recent books was called It Didn't Start With You. It's one of the best books that have ever been written on emotional trauma and how it passes through the bloodline. So I would highly recommend you checking that book out. And he has a lot of amazing practices in that book to help you start to work through releasing those traumas. And then also we talked about letting go of toxic habits. Sometimes a habit could be you tell yourself you're going to do something and you don't, letting your own self down. But we can have a range of toxic habits, not showing up for ourselves, procrastinating, you know, being negative, Nancy, you know, just there's all kind of different habits, but you know what your toxic habits are. So working to release that. And then leaving alone toxic people. And if you're the toxic person, then you need to go off into quarantine. I'm going to use a word from COVID. Go off into quarantine and start working on yourself and get rid of the toxic energy, because don't nobody owe you nothing. Nobody owes me anything. Matter of fact, we owe God everything, because he is the reason that we're even alive and breathing and our heart even beats, that we're able to see and walk and talk. He's the reason. So if anything, we need to make our life about him. And when we make our life about him, nothing else really matters, because we recognize everything we're going through is like a refining process to help us improve and become who we're meant to be. And the last thing we talked about, the last two things we talked about, is pursuing your dreams relentlessly. Go for it. Whatever that is for you, like, go do it. Don't sit up here wasting your life in la la land thinking that you're not good enough, that you're not smart enough, that you're not talented enough, that you don't have what it takes. Stop wasting your life in a mindset that doesn't serve you, and start tapping into the truth of who you really are. You have God's essence in you. The spirit God blew into all of us came from him. So it's not that you don't have the capabilities. It's not that you're not good enough. You are born from greatness. You come from greatness. So it's just a matter of tapping into that and go pursue what that thing is, the thing you know you're supposed to be doing. Go do that, because that's how you become more confident and happier. And then lastly, get the greatest, grandest, baddest, best vision for your life. Create something that in your mind is the biggest dream you possibly can dream of, and then put a plan of action and start living that out. So anyway, I hope this video helps. I'll drop some resources below. Let me know what you found valuable in this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until next time, take care and God bless.